Right. So if I take care of the people, they're going to take care of the workplace, they're going to take care of the product, and then profit is going to happen.
Do you ever just get tired of charging up the hill week after week? You know that hill, the one where you hope and pray the light comes on for someone or some team, and their behavior transforms without so many reminders or so much refocusing. Performative efforts are now sustainable, human-centered systems. Welcome to the Work Positive Podcast. I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett, your host, coaching you to grow people and profits. So my guest today is a leadership strategist and work culture expert who coaches this very transformation. She's the chief culture architect of HR Remedy Consulting and works at the intersection of leadership development, organizational management, and culture elevation, offering clear, practical frameworks for leading with things like integrity, presence, and impact. So let's create a sustainable work positive culture on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Work Positive community, you are in for such a treat today because my new best friend, Dr. Dom, is in the house. Dr. Dom, welcome to the Work Positive Podcast.
Thank you.
I am delighted to have you here because you are such a superhero. I've enjoyed getting to know you personally as well as professionally, and I'm better, and I know the Work Positive community is going to be better today after this conversation. So you're obviously a superhero, Dr. Dom, in all that you do and the ways in which you help humans work better all over the place. What's your origin story? How'd you get involved in this kind of work?
Yeah. So, Dr. Joey, first and foremost, thank you. And thank you for always being so welcoming me into the community, first as a listener and then now as a guest. I really appreciate you and your advocacy and allyship, but most importantly, your friendship and your prayers. So I appreciate you more than you know. As far as my origin story is concerned, I mean, listen, I was a little Black girl that grew up in East Cleveland, right? Single parent household.
Wow.
And I think early on in my life, I was really blessed to have a community of people around me that didn't necessarily have anything to gain from my success, but saw something in me and wanted me to trudge in that direction. So fast forward, after becoming a parent, working in the HR space for quite some time and seeing things kind of go off the rails and HR being more personnel and tactical than it was really around strategy and people, I wanted to return back to that. I remember those feelings from coaches, from teachers, from administrators, from neighbors, right? Remember when we can get like a cup of sugar from your neighbor and it wasn't, it wasn't anything crazy and out of the box, but I wanted to return back to that. And I really wanted to create spaces where people not only felt seen, heard, and valued, but knew that they were, right? And knew that there was a place for them to not come and survive, right, a toxic workplace, but really be able to thrive in a space where they had some skin in the game, right? That they can be creative and innovative, and that's where their people were. And, they could bring their whole selves to work and be, strategic and aligned with what the initiatives were, but then also knowing that the organization was going to take care of them as well.
I love it. You said something so important about your community earlier. People who saw something in you who did not stand to gain or choose to gain from your success,
Yeah.
but called that out of you and propelled you down that path of success anyway. That sure sounds like servant leadership to me.
Indeed. Listen, servant leadership, and I think a word that we've kind of gotten away from too in the last year is allyship, right? When we think about allyship, it's like, oh, well, we're all moving in the same direction. Not necessarily, right? Like we want to make sure that everyone has, dare I say, a seat at the table. We understand perspective. We really are honoring experiences. But I like to look at allyship a little bit deeper and say that these are also folks that they don't have anything to gain, right? Them being at the table, and really their gaining is the essence of understanding and valuing different perspectives, different lifestyles, different experiences, different truths. And when we are sitting in that space and knowing that everybody deserves peace, deserves
Mm,
protection,
mm,
deserves
mm.
safety, we all win.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that piece really creates a context for the use of optimal mental resources. I mean, you're focused. I won't geek out, but we move from back here in the limbic
Yeah.
system up to the prefrontal cortex, and our cortisol drops down. Parasympathetic nervous system gets engaged, so we're able to rest more in this environment, this culture in which I know these people are not just going to suck the life out of me. I know they're going to
Hmm.
invest in me for my own benefit. And so I
Yeah.
want to align myself with the mission of this organization and be a part of what's going on there. Why is that so difficult for us to do today, Dr. Dom?
Yeah, so I think two things. So, from an organizational perspective, I think that we've gotten away from why we do business.
Hmm.
And don't get me wrong, we do business because we want to make money.
Yeah, yeah, it's
We
got to
all
be
certainly
sustainable
understand that,
financially, right? Hmm.
right? But I would say that we've gotten away from our pillars, our values, the principles on which our organizations have been built. And it's always been at its core people, right? The communities that we're in, the people that work in our organizations, and making sure that we are there to serve. Right. I am doing a thing. I am in service of other people. I am providing, right, a good that is then going to make other people's lives better when
Mm,
it all comes down to it. And when we get away from our principles and the cornerstones of our business, and dare I say our values, then we start to subscribe to more profit and
mm.
the patriarchy, really, when it comes down
Yeah,
to it, right?
yeah,
Like there
yeah.
isn't space for everyone. This is about
Mm,
me, 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 me. And I think that this is
mm,
also something that we see right now in our culture, no matter where we are for whatever reason, is that people are turning more inward and it's less communal
mm,
because I don't know when the next is coming and I
mm,
don't know if there's enough for everybody to thrive. So I think that that's part of
mm,
it, is
mm,
that we've gotten away from the real reason that we should be doing business.
mm.
And then the other thing that I'll say from a employee perspective and why it's like, hey, I just don't like it here. There's that transaction piece, right? Like my name isn't on the marquee out front. It's not my business. I don't have a level of ownership here. But I think it goes back to what you said. I don't feel safe here. So I know, and we've seen in the media, right? We've seen it that, hey, I could be laid off. And I just went to go see The Devil Wears Prada too last night.
Oh,
But
did
in
you?
the movie, like in the first 15 minutes, everybody at the magazine gets laid off via text.
Yeah, that is
So if
so
you're
common
not
today.
going to protect me, why
Mm,
should I be 10 toes down for you? So,
mm,
all things considered, it's gotten into this transactional piece and we're losing the humanity of the other. And that humanity again is rooted in this mutual respect that we have for one another and knowing that what you bring to the table is valuable and what I bring to the table is only going
mm, yeah,
to match that, expand what it is that we're doing. And we need both, right? two
mm,
two things can be true at the same time. We need both in order for us to be
absolutely.
successful.
We do. And we're stuck in that limbic system, that cave person part of our brain where, everything's a saber-toothed tiger about to eat me. And so my
Yeah.
cortisol is sky high, which is the opposite of the peace that you're talking about. The
Hmm.
great irony for me, at least as I continue to experience it and hear, particularly from white males my age, that all this stuff is just woo woo when you start talking about community and investment in individuals being
Sure.
seen and heard and valued and those kinds of things. You can have it all
You can.
if you start focusing on the people first.
Indeed.
And then when you care for the people, you're going to make more money than you could ever spend a lifetime,
That's
more
it.
money than your grandchildren can spend, because at the end of the day, it's all about the people. So here in the Work Positive community, we understand that growing people and growing profits are the same thing, Dr. Dom.
Yeah.
They're the
No,
same
absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like the proverbial, like everything rolls downhill, right? So if
Mm.
I take care of the people, they're going to take care of the workplace, they're going to take care of the product, and then profit is going to happen. The other thing too is, like your blessings aren't going to outrun you. So if it's meant for
Mm.
you, if it's meant for the organization, if it's meant for it to happen, then it will happen, and you have to do or should want to do the right thing in order to do that, right? The
Mm.
one thing that I've always said is that like my title is on loan, but my integrity is mine, right? So if
Mm.
I'm showing up in spaces and I have the best of intention and I'm humble and kind and considerate and courageous in the conversations that I'm having, all things will find its way to me,
Mm.
positively.
Yeah. So what we're really talking about is the difference between an abundance and a scarcity mentality.
Indeed, indeed.
I've got to have mine, you go get yours, scarcity,
Yep.
versus we can
Let's
all
get it
benefit.
together.
Yeah.
Right, let's get it
Let's watch it
together.
exponentially grow, right?
Yes.
So let's say that I'm having a conversation with someone who was just fired by text, and I want to describe the kind of work positive culture that you and I are talking about here because I regard them as top talent. I really like to have them join my team. And yet
Mhm.
they've got this experience in the back of their mind. I was just fired by text. I've rarely experienced, I've heard about it, but never really experienced being seen and heard and valued. How do I
Mhm.
communicate this kind of work positive culture to them in such a way that they don't go, yeah, right, but
Yeah.
they instead go, man, that sounds too good to be true, but I want to trust it and lean into it and join your team. How do we help them
Mhm.
make that mental transition?
Yeah, so the first thing that I think that we have to do as leaders is be real in the sense that, talk is cheap. So
Mm.
we can say it all day long, but the reality of it is what is the vibe and what's the energy when somebody walks into the room and when somebody's in your presence? And
Mm.
then also do your actions align with what your intentions are, right? Like, because we always talk about intentions. We always talk about, hey, well, I want us to have a great experience, but then also, do you have programs in place?
Mm.
But even before you get to the programs, like show me your policies. I want to see the
Wow.
data.
Mm.
Right. So we talk about programs and we talk about workshops, which I think is great to reinforce some of those principles and values that I previously talked about, but that's really putting lipstick on pigs when we haven't done the work. So the
Yeah.
work was really about what are the policies, what are the principles, what are your daily practices that are happening here, because those are the roots of the organization and that's the roots of your leadership. So if that's not where we're starting to ensure that systemically, right, we've created a space where everyone has an opportunity to thrive and we're not having those conversations, I think that we're already behind the eight ball. And now with somebody coming into the organization, there's an uphill battle, right? Because to your point, they're already in this space of, hey, I'm here to get a check. I'm not going to stay here long, or I'm not going to make a true investment in energy because I've already been done wrong, or
Yeah.
I'm just trying to survive at this point, right? Like, I don't know what this is all about, type of deal. But I would
Mm.
say that as leaders, we have to put actions to our words,
Mm.
policies, principles, practices, what programs are available. What do we do when we talk about mentorship, sponsorship? Who's got the visibility? Who's got access? Right. And then making sure that we are not just growing our networks and growing our teams, but we're really taking the time to build meaningful relationships. Right.
Mm.
I think that that's why we work, Dr. Joey, because it's more than just what we do, but it's in essence, who are you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Identity.
for so long we've talked about, when you come into work, you got to leave the personal at the door. And I get it. We've all got a job to do. But I'm better and I'm brilliant because of who I am outside of these doors,
Mm.
right? And there's things that are happening outside that I want to celebrate that, you
Mm.
know, I may want to just need or need 10 minutes, right? to come down off of a high or shift gears mentally, whatever that may look like. And as leaders, and I say leaders just in that we're leading ourselves. So I'm not talking about where we sit on the org chart, because
Mhm.
you can use your influence to lead a team all day long. But
Yeah.
I think part of that is we need to make sure that we're building meaningful relationships that go beyond the surface. It's not just the, hey, check the box, hey, how are you? And then I'm scurrying along to my next meeting. But hey, how are you? And actually slowing down to listen to the answer.
Yeah, and you're reminding me that at least for me, the big item on Gallup's engagement poll, that Q12 poll was, do you have a best friend at work?
Yeah.
And that single item, the more people that answer yes to that, the more likely they are to stay
Yeah.
on the team. So the significance of those relationships just can't be oversold.
Yeah, it's the community piece, right? It's the
Yep.
community piece. It's knowing that there's somebody who gets me.
Mm.
Somebody who gets
Mhm.
me, right? On my good
Mhm.
days, on my bad days, on the
Yeah.
in-between days.
Yeah.
Not somebody just like me, right? But somebody who
Yes.
gets me.
Yeah.
And knowing that I've got that voice, that ally, that person, that friend in the room, really changes how I show up, what I have to look forward to, how I download information, if I've got a sounding board.
Mhm.
But all of that also leads into this idea around your board of advisors, right? If I've got a friend at work, if I've got a mentor, if I also have a leader that I know, like, and trust, and I'm kind of checking those boxes, but I'm in a good position to build some really meaningful relationships to also figure out where I do my best work and where I can really offer the best of me to the organization.
What are some ways, and we're talking about retention here, or as I titled one of my books, Stop the Revolving Door, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we're stopping that revolving door. What are some ways we can intentionally create the culture where those kind of relationships get formed?
Yeah. So, Dr. Joey, I say first off, we've got to get really curious and start talking to people. Like, we got to ask people what makes or what keeps you motivated. I think a lot of times we put periods at the end of sentences where commas belong, and there's a lot of assumptions that are happening.
Mm.
What motivates me and what motivates you are going to be two very different things. So, all things considered, we need to sit down and we actually got to talk to folks. So, we got to ask you, right? What keeps you motivated? What do you need in order to stay on the team?
Mm.
And then we got to do something with that information. A
Yeah.
lot of it, again, is programming that allows me to see myself in rooms that maybe my feet have not crushed the threshold.
Mm.
So there's visibility that's happening here. Are you, or who are you calling into the meetings? Who's presenting on behalf of the team? Who's being stretched as far as challenging assignments are concerned?
Mm.
Not everybody is a people person. So maybe I don't want to lead people, I want to lead projects. And are you positioning me in a way and
Mm.
giving me the visibility and also the access to be able to do that? Are you also giving me the time and space that I need to process information? Again, it's not a one size fits all from a leadership perspective.
Mm.
So the way that you process information and I process information is going to be a little bit different. I need you to meet me where I am, right?
Mm.
And we know that when we have leaders who are, spending time building relationships, asking questions, creating opportunities, or at least steering me in a path that aligns me with those opportunities, I'll go through a brick wall for that person, right? It's like that coach that you may have had on the sports team that you're like, well, I am so scared to do the thing, but because you see it in me, I'm going to do absolutely that. So I
Mm.
think that's one of the things. It's not the pizza party, it's not the ping pong tables, it's not, the recognition pins, but it's really around how are we meeting people in their moments, meeting people in their messes, if you will,
Mm.
and making sure that we're doing something with the information. We
Yeah.
send out these surveys, we've got the data, right? We know kind of where the pain points are, and then it goes to the wayside, right? There's not this transparency and communication. And, we defund our ERGs, and we know that these are business groups that really help to keep people on board. We've got to
Agreed.
create community. We've got to
Mm.
build relationships in really meaningful ways. We've got to be consistent. I've been on this kick in personal life and professional life that when we think about relationships, I really want us to think about three things. And those three things is just transparent communication, consistency in building said relationships, and is there a level of consideration? And
Mm.
when those three things are present and undeniable, right? We're really intentional in our efforts there, then we have the capacity to build really meaningful, productive, forward moving relationships where we inherently are going to retain talent and build leaders for the future.
Mm. Dr. Dom is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast. In the show notes, we've got her LinkedIn URL profile and then also a link to her new book, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, Language of the Land. And so you can go
Yeah.
get your copy over on Amazon right there. It, there's somebody listening to this right now who just got their mind stretched by by what you just said, because they're a leader or a manager and they've got a pretty large team, and they're thinking to themselves, she doesn't know the daily pressures I face. She doesn't know the myriad of tasks, the tsunami of responsibility that I have. Because what you're describing sounds like it takes a lot of time, it's hard to scale, it's hard to leverage. What do you
Yeah.
say to somebody whose mind just got stretched by that?
Well, first off, I would say you're absolutely right, right? Like, I'm not in your business. I don't know your day to day. What I
Mhm.
will also say is that we have to find time to slow down so that we can speed up. I think as leaders, we get into this idea that we've got to do it all. We've got to know it all. We've got to say the right
Yeah.
things all the time.
Mm.
And I would argue that that's not true leadership, right? True leadership is, again, putting your people in positions to take things off of your plate. So part of it is, what are you delegating? Who are you delegating it to? And do they have the resources, skills, and the support to be successful in that space? I'd ask us to first take inventory of our team, their skill sets, their desires, their goals. Um, and then be able to, again, position folks in such a way that maybe those some of those tactical things that we're taking on as managers, as leaders, um, we're we're able to offboard some of those things,
Mm.
because we're only as successful as the weakest link on our team. But once we offboard those things, then it does free up some of those that time, right? It does give us an opportunity to engage and connect with folks. The other thing that I'd say to that leader is, let's not look at it only from a traditional sense that we've got to be on the phone in front of each other via, Zoom or Teams or whatever that looks like, to have that one-on-one. We've got to be creative, right? And
Mm.
that creativity can come a number of different ways, right? The way that I want to be communicated with, like voice messages or voice notes, feel really good to me, right? And those
Uh-huh.
are things that I
Uh-huh.
can do anytime during the day to just check in to see how someone is doing. Um, but the other thing that I'll say, and especially now that the weather is changing, I love to take my one-on-ones. Like, I like to take my one-on-ones to go. So if we're walking the loop, if
Yep.
we are, having a chat and chew type of lunch, right? If we are having just some really just calm, cool moments that disarm people, because sometimes when we're in the office, it feels a little
Mm.
stuffy
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm able to get out of my own way and get out of the comfort of the four walls of my office, then maybe some of that tension dissipates a little bit, right? Some
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
that wall, right? I can chip away at it little by little,
Mhm.
as a leader. And then the last piece that I'll say to that particular leader is, give it time, right? Give it time, and know that, you know, your team also doesn't know what they don't know. So there's going to need to be some guidance. Whenever I'm doing one-on-ones and new on a team or taking on a new team member, I generally like to give them some type of template for one-on-ones
Mm,
and empower them, right? To say, hey, the one-on-ones really belong to you. So I want to talk about everything and anything that you want to talk about. And we're never going to talk about, or I'm sorry, we're never going to start with the tasks or the projects that are due or the
mhm,
deliverables. I always
mhm.
want to start with you. How are you doing? What do you need in this season? How are you growing? What is challenging you? And what's one thing that I can help you with? Right?
Mm,
Because as leaders, again, we are there to serve.
yeah.
So those are some things that I would say to a leader that's like, sis, you have no idea what's happening here. You're absolutely right. And I know that we can be doing things differently.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
opening my mind up to do things differently, right?
Yeah.
Part of it.
Yeah.
So one thing I like that you just really like that you said there is I'm building a bridge between the familiar and the unfamiliar there. For instance, I'm bolting onto the front of those one-to-one conversations, the starting with you. How are you?
Hmm.
You know, what's going on with you? I'm interested in you as a person, and then we get to the task and the deliverables
Yeah.
and things like that. So that's one thing that we can begin working on now. Also, and perhaps you implied this, but I heard it. So often as leaders and managers, we overfunction, and I like to use this hand symbol. You know, I'm overfunctioning,
Yeah.
and so I'm over you, and I associate that to mean I have to do more. I have to come in earlier. I have to do more
Mhm.
tasks and what have you than others. But instead, if we can open up that relationship and allow each of us to work from our strengths and to bring more
Mhm.
joy into the situation, then that relieves me, and so I'm offloading the total responsibility for all this task
Yeah.
completion. I'm allowing autonomy and agency to grow among my
Yep.
team because I'm getting out of the way and
Well,
allowing
I'm
them to
getting out of the
flourish.
way and I can go on PTO, right? Like how many times do we hear leaders say, I can't take a vacation, or I'm scared, or
Yeah,
I'm nervous to take a vacation because I don't trust my team. That
absolutely.
trust is not because they're incapable. The trust is because we haven't done the things to prepare them to be
Mm,
successful. I
mm,
think the other thing that when you talk about over functioning, the thing that I think about is from an organizational perspective, a lot of times we get it wrong too, right? Those folks
yeah.
that are sitting in the executive suite. And I say we get it wrong because just because somebody does that thing well does not mean that they need to lead people that also do that thing,
Yes, that they even
right?
have people skills. And so we just said,
They
oh,
may have
he
no
built a great team.
desire, they may not do people, right? All of
Mhm,
the things. And
mhm,
that doesn't mean that they don't have the capacity. It doesn't mean that they can't learn, but it
right.
also means that we need to take the time to prepare them
Mm,
to prepare them to be ready for a team, to receive a
yeah,
team,
yeah.
and give them the tools and resources in that space. So I think some
Mm,
of that over functioning is also like the lack of preparation and wanting to continue to prove myself worthy to be a leader.
mm,
What I am here to tell everybody, right, a part of this community and outside of this community, things get better because you walk in the room, right?
mm,
It's not about you doing more, it's
mhm,
about how are you using your gifts, your strengths to also empower other people.
mm,
So you're the leader for a reason.
yeah,
You've
yeah.
already made it, right? There's nothing to prove at this point. What we need to do is we need to show that we can, in fact, do the job. So there's like this rat race of, hey, I got to do more. I got to figure it out. I got to find solutions. But really, the solutions are the people that are sitting around the table, your team members. They're the ones that are working with the clients, the customers, the internal folks, and they've got the best ideas and solutions. So we need to do more
Right.
listening than we do talking.
And facilitation,
Yeah.
absolutely. Let me ask you a question. What if the key to growing your work culture hides in plain sight? Take the free Work Positive Culture Assessment to discover it. Get insights in less than 4 minutes that transform your culture so you grow people and profits. You just answer 13 simple questions and discover your culture stage, strengths, and personalized next steps. Get your free aha culture moment at workpositive.today. Go to workpositive.today right now. Dr. Dom is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast. So I promised the community that we would talk about your new book, Language of the Land. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that. And the link is in the show notes, so you can go get yourself a copy right now.
Listen, I'm super excited about Language of the Land. So, Dr. Joey, it started as an idea, I want to say maybe a year and a half ago. I started a series called The ABCs of DEI with Dr. Dom. So, for anybody that doesn't know, my work sits at the intersection of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as leadership development. And I go into male and pale places and teach them the language of the land. And really, that is through cultivating just really honest, safe conversations where we explore different and unknown, as well as creating vessels of community, if you will. So, really curating experiences through ERGs or employee resource groups, culture committees, equity councils to ensure that those policies, procedures, and practices that I talked about are in place, right? Those systems are really there, and we're getting into the roots of the organization. So the language of the land is really, dare I say, 2.0 version of DEI, ABCs of DEI with Dr. Dom. And what I wanted to do with this piece is to make leadership accessible to everyone. I think, again, when we talk about leadership, it's like, whoa, my mind is blown. I don't know where to start. And I really wanted to make it accessible but practical, right? You ever go to those like conferences and summits and you're like, this is amazing, and you walk away inspired, but then you get back to your desk and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this information?
Yeah.
Right? This is the what am I supposed to do with this information?
Oh, I love
So
it.
the way that it's set up is, every letter in the alphabet. So A is audacity, right? B is belonging, but it goes through not only a narrative of what this may look like in your workplace, but it also challenges you to think about how are you showing up when this thing may happen, and what are some things that you're willing to shift, to change, and may see different or lean into to offer that to your team. So Language of the Land is really the A to Z guide for anyone, any leader who is looking to make intentional changes, elevations within their culture and community. So super excited about it.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
link is in the show notes, so you can go over to Amazon and get your copy right now. The Work Positive community always wants to know from my guest, Dr. Dom, so I got to ask you, what's one thing, because we like dots around here, do one thing. What's
Yes.
one thing the Work Positive community can do starting today to create the kind of positive work culture we're talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dr. Joey, I've got millions of things that folks
Of
can do, but I
course
would
you
say
do.
the one thing that I would ask us to do is ask more questions. Become genuinely curious about the people who are around you,
Mhm.
why they operate the way that they do, why they emote the way that they do, why they carry the things that they carry. Because you'll learn not only a lot about them, but I think you'll learn a lot about yourself as well. You'll learn where your blind spots are, where the privilege is, where maybe you can lean in and do things a little bit differently. And maybe that excitement or that tone that you've been offended by, now you see that as a sense or a shield of protection. Maybe that elevated voice that you hear from that person, it's not them being upset about something, it's them really being passionate about something, and this is why. So if we do that, and again, if you take nothing else away from the conversation, I'd ask for people to slow down and become genuinely curious about the people that they're choosing to do life and choosing to do work with. And it's going to make us all just better humans individually and collectively.
I love it. Absolutely
Yeah.
love it. Dr. Dom's been my guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast. Reach out to her through LinkedIn, which you'll find the URL to her profile in the show notes, along with hremedyconsulting.com, and then a link over to Amazon for her book, Language of the Land. Dr. Dom, thanks for taking time out from what I know is a busy schedule to share your wisdom and insights with the Work Positive community today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Listen, it's been an honor. You are absolutely a blessing. And I hope that what we shared today is a blessing to somebody else. So thank you. Thank you for the invite.
I'm so grateful you joined our conversation about creating positive work cultures that grow people and profits. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn today. Just search for Dr. Joey Fawcett, or you can click the link in your show notes. When you send your connection request, mention you're a Work Positive podcast listener, because I want to give you a free digital copy of my Work Positive Team Edition book. It's a $19.95 value, but I want to share it with you free because it contains practical strategies that I personally use with clients to transform toxic work environments into thriving cultures. We explore in that book how to create a positive work culture, and we do so again in every episode of this podcast. Our LinkedIn connection allows you and me to directly talk about your specific challenges, so feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I personally read and respond to all those messages because I genuinely care about your work positive success. So go to LinkedIn and let's connect. Remember to mention you're a podcast listener to receive your free Work Positive Team Edition book. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Work Positive Podcast.